So those are really profound words that Victor just shared with us. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound. There's another man who has shared very wise words throughout his life, a man I admire very much, and his name is Albert Einstein. Albert Einstein, in his wisdom, once said this: "Any man who can drive safely while kissing a pretty girl is simply not giving the kiss the attention that it deserves." So whether or not we agree with Einstein's sentiment there, and frankly, from the bystander point of view, I'm much more concerned that the man pay more attention to his driving, right? I mean, but whether or not we agree with that, those words bring up three questions for me that I'd like to explore with you here today, and they are these. First, what is this kiss that is not getting the attention that it deserves? Second, why is it that we don't always give our full attention to that which we claim matters most to us? And third, what could possibly be more courageous than a bona fide kiss? Three questions. So first, what is this kiss that is not getting the attention it deserves? Is it the kiss of partnership? And perhaps you feel within yourself a desire to be more present to your beloved. Perhaps it's the kiss of spiritual partnership and kinship. And perhaps you feel within you a desire to feel more fully, to honor more fully the spiritual community, the spiritual opportunities that you have right here in your midst, where you come and you know it's you, the Christ, beholding Christ. Perhaps for you, it's the kiss of parental love. And you feel within yourself this desire to be just that much more patient and compassionate when your aging father or mother shares with you the same story that you have heard now 1,000 times. Or simply the desire to be more alert and give your full attention when your child shares with you what he or she did today in Sunday school. That kiss in particular, that relationship between parent and child is very alive for me in my life. You know, growing up in the Vietnamese culture, we were taught from a very early age to really honor and respect your elders. So that means that when my mother or father came home from work or from anywhere else, no matter what I was doing, no matter what you're doing, whether you are building a utopian community with your Lego set, or teaching like English as a second language to your stuffed animals, whatever you're doing as a young child, I was a little strange kid, but you run outside and you stop and you greet your parent, no matter what you're doing. So what I would do is this: I'd come running out, my little legs, and come out to the front door where my dad would be coming home from work, and I'd stop and I'd say, "Chào bố, bố về ạ." Chào bố in Vietnamese means, "Hi, Dad." Bố về means, "Dad, you're home." And at doesn't actually have a meaning, but it's added to the end of a greeting to show respect. Chào bố, bố về ạ. Say that. Chào bố, bố về ạ. So in just a moment, I was able to stop what I was doing and be fully present to my father. Even though as a kid it was a little bit of a chore, right? Later on in my adulthood, I realized that these were the most precious moments of my childhood, the times when I stopped what I was doing. And so I've reflected on this idea that, don't we all really want to fully embrace the moments of our lives and give each moment of our precious lives that attention that they're due, right? So the question is, perhaps the ultimate answer then to this question, what is this kiss that is not getting the attention it's due? It's not a particular situation or relationship, but the question itself reminds us to become more fully awake, alive to the glorious blessings that exist for each and every one of us. But that leads us to our second question for today, which is this. Why don't we always give our full attention to that which we say matters most to us? How is it that we get so distracted, whether it's by television or the movies, the multimedia, social media, whether it's that we get distracted by our own thoughts, right? We're here about the future or about the past, or perhaps we get distracted by our judgments or our fears about what's happening in the present. Why is it that we get so distracted that we lose sight of and fail to show up with our original intention? Sometimes people wonder about this and they ask, well, maybe the power of the power of intention is not as powerful as we think or say it is in unity, right? Some people are like, oh, well, that intention, that's hogwash, you know. But I actually think the problem is not with our intention. I believe that our intention has the power to transform and change our minds and thus our lives. I believe that the issue is not with our power of intention. It's not with our conscious intention. Rather, it is with all that unconscious stuff that drives our engine, that causes us to veer off course and have our kisses miss their targets, right? So, to illustrate, I'm going to share a story from my own life of missing the target. You know, people come here with their inspirational stories, and I'm going to share with you one of my big mistakes in life here. As those of you who know Victor know that he's on the playful side of life, right? And I can tend to be very studious and serious. So when Victor posts a video on my Facebook page, I just assume this is going to be a joke, right? So I'm in the middle of my studies, and I see this video on my page. He doesn't normally post to my page, but I'm like, oh, okay. So I assume this is funny, and so I stop, take a break from my homework, and I check out this video. And I open it, and there's this man standing there, you know, all dressed up in a suit, and he's like saying something along the lines of, we insurance companies should fight for your business. And then there are about 6 people in the background, like punch, play, fighting. You know, they're not actually really hurting each other, you know this. But you're watching this, and I'm looking at it, and I'm like, I don't think this is funny at all, right? You know, but it's my partner, so I'm like, what do I do? And so I checked to see who else has liked the post. And so I'm like, whoa, a bunch of his friends liked it. So I'm like, okay, well, you know, just maybe they're seeing something that I don't. So you know, I just go back to my homework. And then later that evening, Victor comes home from work. He's a high school teacher. He comes home from work. And he's like, did you see it? Did you see my post, my video? And I'm like, yes. And I'm like, and then I have this moment of awakening, right? And it dawns on me, oh my God, that's your video. Victor was in the video. And I didn't see him. This was the video that he said he was going to be acting in a few weeks ago. So I'm like, okay, let's go watch it. And so we put it on. And if you could flip to this and see, oh, it's a little, that big person in the back there is Victor. He's not only in the video, he's all over the video. And I didn't see him. So what happened? So I'd like to tell you that I'm an A student, and with amazing powers of focus. I actually have exceptional powers of concentration and focus. So what happened? So I have a theory, right? The theory of what happened, which I tell Victor, is that I had an idea of what that video was about, right? It was supposed to be some joke. And so in that, I was paying attention to the man, listening to him, focused on what he was going to say that would be funny. But in my focus, I failed to see what was there. In my focus of attention, as I looked for what I was looking for, I failed to see what was there. Right? Yeah. So, what do we fail to see on a regular basis? Whether it's because we're not expecting to see it, or because we're so focused on something else, something we believe or expect we're going to see, that we fail to see what's right in front of us, the love of my life right in front of me, right? What do we fail to see? This whole experience reminded me of this quotation by Gilbert Chesterton. It goes like this: "The traveler sees what he sees. The tourist only what he came to see. Be a traveler, not a tourist. Be a traveler in life, not a tourist." Because, it's pretty safe to be a tourist. Tourists usually come, with this idea about what they want to see. And then there's this curiosity, but usually it's no more than intellectual curiosity, right? Oh, well, that's interesting. You come and you're like, oh, but you don't let what is foreign affect or alter you. A traveler, on the other hand, comes into an experience wide open, right? With this receptivity to what is unknown and what is foreign. To allow what is here, what is there, transform him or her. To be a traveler, unlike to be a tourist. To be open to allowing the space that you are in, the person that you are with, to fundamentally alter you, is an act of courage, right? It takes vulnerability and it takes strength. And so that leads us to our third question of the day. What could possibly be more courageous than a bona fide kiss? So I'm not going to tell you whether this part is from my personal experience or from just watching a lot of romantic movies. But to me, a bona fide kiss is not one in which, number one, we're daydreaming about someone else or something else, right? It's also, while it's a physical act, it's not purely a physical act, right? We're there with our hearts, our minds, and our bodies, our souls fully present. And then finally, to me, a bona fide kiss is an act of true surrender, right? We surrender ourselves fully in that moment, not merely just to the person, but to the kiss itself, right? We surrender ourselves fully, letting go of any barriers we might have. And in this regard, kissing is actually a really scary thing to do. So there's really only maybe one or two things that I can think of that are scarier or equally scary as a kiss. And that is prayer and meditation. So that's taught in unity, that is. So like with good kissing, you see, the first step in prayer and meditation is to relax. To relax and become fully receptive to the moment as it is. That's the first step in both prayer and meditation as taught in unity. But the second step is this, it's to focus. So in prayer, we would be focusing our attention on a divine idea, such as the divine idea of love or of wholeness. And then in meditation, which unity actually calls centering prayer, we would actually focus our attention in meditation on something like a sacred word of our choosing, like the Christ. And this focus of attention makes sense because here in Unity we teach foundationally that what we focus on grows, right? So it makes sense that we would focus our attention on God by focusing our attention on a divine idea. But that's not the part that's scary. The part that's scary comes next, which is this. After we focused our attention, we have to be willing to let go. We have to be willing to surrender ourselves in that next moment to what Charles and Myrtle Fillmore, the co-founders of the Unity movement, calls the silence. And doesn't that sound like the name of a horror film? The Silence, seriously. But we surrender ourselves to the silence. We surrender our conscious minds, our egoic minds, as we move into that time. And this is because our egos are founded on the belief in separation. And prayer and meditation is about union or communion with God. This is why the ego cannot go with us and gets abandoned at the door. And this is why prayer and meditation, when properly done according to Unity, is a very courageous act. We can't bring our conscious awareness into it. So Thomas Keating describes centering prayer as this. It's not just sustained attention to a special word or image. It's the surrender of one's whole being to God. The surrender of one's whole being to God. The surrender of one's whole being to that holy kiss. The holy kiss. To be clear, as we talk about surrendering to God, and this is a really important point in Unity. In Unity, when we talk about surrendering to God, we don't mean a God outside of ourselves. We mean God as a phase of our own mind, what we in Unity call our superconscious minds. It's by surrendering to this higher aspect of our very own consciousness that we renew our minds, that our minds are transformed by the truth that is the actual essence of our own being. It's this truth that comes in and cleanses out that subconscious engine so that we can stand more clearly and rightfully in that true path that is ours, so that our cars will not veer and our kisses will not miss their mark. It is that which centers us and aligns us with truth and with God. The higher aspect of our own consciousness. So I've experienced this alignment happening in my own life. After I set a very earnest intention years ago, about 8 years ago, in my own spiritual journey, to know love more truly, I found that the difference in the extent of love that I had experienced back then in my life and the one that I have now in my life is absolutely profound. This is actually a big part of why I'm in ministry in the first place, because of this transformation of what I really couldn't even see back then in the earlier years of my life. And the most fundamental transformation happened in my relationship to my own parents. As I shared earlier, some of my most cherished times in life are those moments I had when my father came home from work. But for those of you especially who weren't here a month ago when I came to speak, you might not know that for most of my childhood, actually most of my life, I never believed that I was loved by my parents. And they have actually never spoken those words, "I love you," to me, even to this day. So in my childhood, I looked for these words, right? These words of affection, or even like a conversation that would be about something other than my grades. I was looking for very specific evidence of love. You see, I'm a very verbal person, in case you couldn't tell. And so if I love you, I'm going to tell you I love you. So I was looking for love specifically in that way in my childhood, and I never found it. But the thing is, to this today, standing here before you, I could tell you that I have absolutely no doubt in my heart, in my mind, and in my being that my parents love me and that they've always loved me from the beginning. I know this now, and I didn't know it then. So the question is, what changed? What changed? Certainly we've all changed over the years. My parents and I have both. But in terms of their actions, they're really not all that different. But what changed in me was my ability to see love more clearly. And I attribute that to the transformation in mind that took place when I planted that seed of intention to know love more fully in my life, to know love more truly. And what I did in this is not to say, hey, I'm going to set this intention and I'm going to go into my prayer meditation and I'm going to declare and manifest that my parents are going to call me 3 days a week. You know, I didn't set these specific things that I'm going to affirm and say, this is what love looks like and this is how love needs to show up in my life. I did not do that. I did the opposite, which is I had to become willing to die to my old self, to die to my old beliefs. I had to become willing to surrender myself in the silence, to surrender everything I thought I knew about love, about what it is, what it looks like. I had to surrender what I thought I knew about my parents and who they are that I know so well, supposedly. I had to let all of that go so that that which is true could work its way through me and in me so that I could see more clearly. Just as in the video clip of Victor, it was like I couldn't see him, then I could. And I couldn't see the love that was there. And then I could. And the beauty of that transformation that began inside of me is that it transformed everything I saw and knew about love so that it wasn't just like, oh, I see the love that is here for me from my parents, but I see the love that is within me and for them and for all people. And I see more of the love that is within all people and everywhere present for everyone. I started to see that, and that became the beginning of my ministry. That, if I could show people that, right? And then, after my belief system was transformed, I was able to look back into my past and sort of sheepishly look back and look at these facts that I'll list for you that show evidence of my parents' love that I couldn't see in the beginning. You see, I was born in Vietnam. We came over here at the fall of Saigon, basically, and my father was an engineer in Vietnam, but when we started out here, we started out with him as the janitor at the local sewage plant. So he started all over. He had a family of 3 grandparents and 5 children to feed. Yeah, and knew the language barely. So my dad was a little bit busy during our childhood. I swear he never missed a day of work in his life. He commuted 2 hours a day to work and was home regularly at 5:30 every day for us. And not only that, but we all 5 kids were high school valedictorians. We graduated with straight A's. My father went home from work and tutored us every evening so that we would have a chance to succeed in the world. I didn't notice all this when I was a kid, but I started to see. And then my mother, she took on sewing jobs when we needed extra money. She cooked for us, she cleaned, she did all our laundry, she did everything so that all of the kids could just focus on our studies, and that's it. That's what my mother did. And my mother was a very beautiful woman, but I didn't even think about this as a kid, but she never wore makeup, nor did she dress up. And I didn't realize until later that everything my parents made, everything they had, they gave to us children. But I wasn't able to see that until my mind was transformed in God, in love, and in truth. My yearning for truth reminded me of this Rumi quote. There is some kiss we want with our whole lives. There is some kiss we want with our whole lives. The touch of Spirit. This touch of God is the beginning of all kisses in life, of all relationships, of all loves. A tourist sees what she came to see. A traveler sees what there is to see. And again, in the words of the Sufi poet, it's only the traveler who can experience what Rumi says are the 1,000 ways to kneel and kiss this earth. The 1,000 ways to kneel and kiss this earth. So in conclusion, I just want to reiterate my belief that number one, every kiss should get the attention that it deserves. Also, cultivating our ability to be fully present to the wholeness and holiness of each moment begins with a conscious intention, first and foremost, to know God, to know truth, to know love more fully and wholly. As travelers rather than as tourists, we can begin this journey by first focusing on our intention, but then by surrendering, by letting go fully to that kiss. So indeed, a kiss is the most courageous thing that we could ever possibly do. And I don't know about you, but before I'm willing to kiss somebody, somebody new, I always want to know the answer to this question. I always want to ask, may I have your intention, please? Thank you. Blessings.